Okay, let's move on. I'm sure that you've heard by now, after a week in the doghouse, Disney ABC is now unsuspending Jimmy Kimmel. Last week, the company did suspend Jimmy Kimmel, his show, indefinitely, triggering a massive boycott and cancel movement with people dumping their Disney Plus, their Hulu, canceling Disney properties, trips. They were going to go to Disney. They're not going anymore. But I have to tell you, the real story that I would offer on the capitulation of these big media companies is not just like fashion, that they're fascism curious or just obeying in advance because they're weak. And that is all true. It's also a bid to make sure that their money doesn't start getting funny, that their money doesn't stop flowing, and that the agency that approves their mergers and acquisitions, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, does not stand in the way of those mergers and acquisitions, which they could do because they can actually remove the licenses from local stations. Very quickly, as a reminder, this is the joke that caused ABC to feel the need to bump Jimmy Kimmel off the air. Let's play that joke real quick.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. Okay. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction.
Okay. So
construction.
We can leave it there. So after that, Brendan Carr, who, by the way, is not just the head of the FCC, he's the guy who wrote the chapter in Project 2025 about how to warp the FCC to fit the agenda of an autocracy. That guy. He went on a right-wing podcast by the guy's name is Benny Johnson is the podcast. He went on that show and made a Mafia-Style threat to Disney, ABC, and its affiliates. And here is that threat by Brendan Carr.
Frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, there's going to be additional work for the FCC. Again, there's actions that we can take on licensed broadcasters. And frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back on Comcast and Disney and say, listen, we are going to preempt. We are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out, because we licensed broadcaster, are running the possibility of fines or license revocations from the FCC if we continue to run content that ends up being a pattern of news distortion. So,
yeah, it's a nice little broadcast you got there. To be a shame if something happened to it, Brendan Carr had to say. Now, after he made that threat for the New York Times, and this is not on screen, so I'm just going to read it to you guys. Let me just read this very, very, very quickly. After the podcast interview, Nexstar, which owns 32 ABC affiliate stations, announced that it would preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live for the foreseeable future and added, Nexstar strongly objects to recent comments made by Mr. Kimmel concerning the killing of Charlie Kirk, which is not what he did. He made fun of Trump. Nexstar has good reason, per the New York Times, to appease the FCC. At the moment, in August, the company announced that it intended to buy one of its competitors, Tegna, which owns 13 ABC affiliate stations. But in order for the deal to go through, Mr. Carr and the FCC would have to not only approve it, but potentially raise the nationwide cap on the percentage of households a single entity's television stations are allowed to reach. Broadcasters have pushed the government for decades to raise and repeal the cap, which is currently set at 39%, meaning stations can only cover 39% of the population in that region by owning those many stations. Now, if the Nexstar Tegna deal went through, Nexstar's reach is likely to exceed that limit. Shortly after Nexstar's announcement, Sinclair Broadcasting, a conservative right-wing company, I added that owns 31 ABC affiliate stations, said it would also suspend Mr. Kimmel's program. Of ABC's 205 affiliate stations, 63 are owned by Nexstar, and Sinclair, another 13, are owned by Tegna. Together, they make up about 37% of all of ABC's local affiliates. Minutes after Nexstar's announcement and just hours after Mr. Carr's podcast appearance, ABC announced that it was suspending Kimmel and suspending his program indefinitely. That, my friends, is direct government censorship. And I will add that Carr also low-key threatened Jimmy Kimmel himself that he'd better make a financial donation to Charlie Kirk and his billionaire donors' nonprofit Christian nationalist campus crusade organization, Turning Points USA. So here is how California Congressman Robert Garcia, who is the ranking Democratic member, the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee, responded to all of that in an interview on my friend Ayman Mohyeddin's show on MSNBC. Here's Congressman Garcia. And it's B4.
Look, I think the idea that, that Donald Trump can likely make a call to the FCC or to Mr. Carr, the chairman of the FCC, and then work through Sinclair and all these stations to pull a talk show. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel is a talk show host comedian who during a monologue gave an opinion. And he's going to lose his show over that. This is an immense overreach by the president, by his administration, and it happened to Colbert. It's happened now to Jimmy Kimmel. Donald Trump is saying that it may happen to others, that other folks should lose their license. I mean, this is the First Amendment. This is free speech under direct attack by the president of the United States. And I hope that folks are as outraged as I am and the folks that I'm talking to on the street, because people are viewing this as an attack on free speech. And what happened to the Republican Party that was against cancel culture and promoted freedom of speech and that believes that everyone should have a chance to be heard? I mean, the hypocrisy is immense here. And so, Oversight Committee has already sent letters. We've already opened investigations up on Sinclair, on the FCC. And I'll tell you this, we got James Comer on the Oversight Committee to commit publicly, I got it publicly, that he would bring Brendan Carr in front of the Oversight Committee. So we are expecting and hoping that happens because we have a lot of questions there.
And joining me now is Congressman Robert Garcia, the youngest ranking member to serve on the House Oversight Committee ever. His committee is also investigating the Epstein files and the many powerful people in government who helped Jeffrey Epstein get away with his crimes for so long. I have questions about that as well. But Congressman, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. I'm actually excited to be with you again. I miss talking to you, so I hope I can come back often.
Absolutely. I know. Last time I saw you, it was actually in person. This was like post-COVID. You were on set with me on the Readout at MSNBC, which is Ms. Now. So they've changed their name. So let's talk about this investigation on oversight. Is this bipartisan? Are your Republican colleagues on board with investigating these super mergers that seem to now be tied to essentially making sure comedians don't make fun of Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, look, whether it's bipartisan or not, I mean, they pretend it's bipartisan. They often will say, oh, we're also concerned. We know at the end of the day that most Republicans are going to do whatever Donald Trump tells them to do. That just is the modern Republican Party. It's very unfortunate. But what we are doing is, I think, through the public and through public pressure and through being aggressive and through using the same tactics that they've used on us now for years, we're now forcing some progress. And I think whether it's been on the Epstein files, whether it's been on forcing subpoena votes, look at this Brendan Carr commitment from Comer. He didn't want to bring Mr. Carr in, but we made a big fuss about it at the Oversight Committee, and Chairman Comer said, "Okay, well, let's try to get him. I'll get him on the phone." And we pushed hard and got a verbal commitment that we're going to try to get Brendan Carr in front of the Oversight Committee, because there are obviously a lot of questions here. And so we hope that Republicans will join us in the investigations, but even in the minority, Democrats have tools in front of us that we have to use. And the power of investigation, we don't need to wait for Republicans to give us permission to investigate and ask questions of private companies and the FCC. That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, because it seems to me that, when people talk about the First Amendment, they often misquote the First Amendment. They think it is cancel culture or, one group of people saying, well, I don't like what you said, therefore you're quote unquote canceled. That's not the First Amendment violation. It's when the government is interfering. And this definitely feels like the New York Times lays that sequence out, that Brendan Carr, and I think it's clear to anyone who understands anything about Donald Trump, this was about him. This was about Jimmy Kimmel making fun of him. And he's already said he wanted Kimmel fired. He wants Jimmy Fallon fired. He hates Saturday Night Live. There's a pattern here. He was cheering about Colbert's show being canceled. And it's all because he doesn't have a sense of humor and he can't take a joke. And so he's decided he wants to get all these comedians off the air. And then all of a sudden, Brendan Carr is saying, oh, we could take action if you guys don't if you don't end this show. Does it seem to you as clear a violation of the First Amendment as it does to me, and that it's collusion and extortion?
It's all of those things. It's all of those things, and it's a pattern and behavior from Donald Trump. I mean, this is also not like a surprise. I mean, he's been talking about this. He is on his revenge tour ever since the first day of his second term. And so he's going to go after people that criticize him. He's going after educational institutions. He's going after the media. He's going after comedians and all the hypocrisy, of course, on the Republican side, particularly on issues of speech that should be protected, is crazy. I mean, I remember, and Joey, we've talked about this before. I mean, just in my first few months of this last term, I was criticizing Elon Musk, and Donald Trump sent me an investigation letter from the DOJ because I called Elon Musk a dick on TV. And it was like you're opening an investigation from the U.S. attorney on U.S. attorney letterhead because I complained about someone and made a euphemism on TV. But this is who they are at this moment. I think we can expect more of it. And this is why it's so dangerous when you have someone like Trump making appointments and essentially guiding the FCC and other agencies and remolding them in his image. I think this is a future we can expect, certainly over the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I think it's really dangerous is this idea that is I did a show on this podcast, an episode that talked about the weird ways in which QAnon was almost kind of right, not about the entirety of their sort of insane conspiracy theory, but the part that said that powerful people are protecting pedophiles. Turns out they were right about that, right? Broken clocks. And the idea that you had somebody like Alexander Acosta, who is the former U.S. attorney in Miami, he is the one who gave Jeffrey Epstein this sweetheart deal, this insanely sweetheart deal where he could go to prison and then leave prison every day to go to his nonprofit and work and still continue to abuse underage girls. You guys got a chance to question him before a closed door hearing on the Oversight Committee. Talk about what did he say? Did he have an apology for the victims?
No apology. And what was really stunning, and we had him first for maybe almost 6 hours. And so you can imagine the depth of questioning. And we got a lot of really important information as we're building our case, of course. But some things stood out, which I think are clear. And before I mention that, I want to add to one thing that you said. I think it's really important. Not only were all those things true, that he got the sweetheart deal, but remember that his own main prosecutor, the line prosecutor that was working on this case for Acosta's office, they brought forward an 80-page multi-person indictment that was going to go in the direction of a massive federal case of which co-conspirators would have been revealed, of which there was evidence, according to those line prosecutors, of enormous amount of sex trafficking, of the attacks and the trauma that these underage girls were going through. It was intense, it was substantive, and it was the recommendation to Acosta. And then Acosta comes back after his own people say, we've got to go after Jeffrey Epstein and all these other men, and says, actually, no, we're going to actually instead negotiate a state negotiated, as we know, process. And he's going to end up with 18 months. We're going to agree to it. He's going to get work release. And then during that time, of course, he goes on to abuse these other women. So what the hell happened between that actual recommendation from his line prosecutor to the decision, I think is really key to this whole Epstein scandal. Now, I will tell you this also.
Yeah.
I asked him directly to Acosta, do you actually, looking back, can you see that this was a sweetheart deal for Epstein? He refused. It was the best thing that they could have gotten. He said, this was the best we could do, was this 18-month sentence. I also said, do you also acknowledge that Epstein went on to rape other women and girls during that period of time? And he said, well, I can't prove, I don't know that. I can't prove that it actually happened. And I said, we just heard from a woman 2-3 weeks ago that was actually abused during that period of time.
Yeah.
But he refused to acknowledge that he caused any sort of harm. And he also was very, very cagey about questions as it related to Donald Trump. And so I think that it's really interesting. One thing that we learned, for example, was that the Trump administration didn't approach him to be labor secretary. He approached the Trump administration and made a pitch. And so what that pitch actually looked like, I think we're also very interested in trying to get more information about.
Very interesting. So it was his idea to join the Trump cabinet. He makes the pitch. Trump says, sure, absolutely, you're in. And he's not, does he have any expertise for the cabinet position that he was in? Or was it maybe just
No, absolutely not. I mean, the highest profile thing Alex Acosta had done at the time was give Jeffrey Epstein a sweetheart deal that allowed him to abuse more people. But some things are really, I think, interesting. And again, things, all arrows point back to Palm Beach, Florida. They point
Mm-hmm.
back to Mar-a-Lago. They also point to New York. And it's all of these people ran in these circles in New York, in Palm Beach, at Mar-a-Lago, these ring of kind of these, national kind of beauty pageants that were set up for young girls, this trafficking that was happening from other parts of the world. It is a complex scheme that Jeffrey Epstein put in place. But we have to remember, and this is just the truth, that Jeffrey Epstein himself said that Donald Trump was his best friend, not an acquaintance, not someone he knew, his best friend.
For a decade.
For a decade. There was an 8x10 picture of Donald Trump on Jeffrey Epstein's desk that we learned about from some of the survivors. When they would go to Jeffrey Epstein's home to be raped, they said they saw his desk and there's a picture of Donald Trump on his desk.
This is, and the other piece of it, so there are two parts of it that I think are really important for the public to know. Because people are like, well, why do you care about this? Number one, these victims deserve justice. These victims, I mean, I think people have to get in your mind and remember, Jeffrey Epstein died in prison, and I'm not so sure he died of his own hand. I don't know that I believe that. He died in prison literally a month after he was incarcerated. He never went to trial. So there was no Jeffrey Epstein trial. The only person who's actually been on trial in the federal sense, right, outside of that Florida throwaway case, it was like the Diddy case. They got him for what? Prostitution, right? They claimed the girls were prostitutes. And they sort of wrote them off as prostitutes and not credible. In the federal case, Ghislaine Maxwell is the one who got 20 years for what Jeffrey Epstein and she did together. So there's the piece of wanting those young women to get justice. They totally deserve it. The other piece is the question of whether Jeffrey Epstein had international connections and was using the predation that these men were into to bribe them and to force them to do things for maybe foreign governments. Is your committee going to get into that question?
Yes, because I got to tell you, there's so much out there right now, but I got to tell you this piece about possible foreign governments involved. It is a lot of signs are pointing in this direction. There's a lot of evidence that is being laid out. We are wanting to do our due diligence. It's very delicate, as you can imagine. But there is no question that this was an international effort, and there were women that were being trafficked here in the U.S. and there were women that were being trafficked from other parts of the world, Eastern Europe, other places, to the United States. And Epstein was absolutely involved in that. And so all of that information needs to come out. And what I've told folks, and you and I probably hear this a lot. I hear, but well, you know what? Why weren't you guys more active or more loud when President Biden was there or before? And what I told people was the truth. I go, look, I think I never knew first how extensive this was.
That's right.
And I also want to know why more wasn't done during the Biden years. Why weren't we more aggressive? We should have been, and especially with what we know today. And I think what it comes down to is, regardless of Epstein and what Donald Trump may or may not have done, and I think our expectation is to find out exactly, this is not just about Donald Trump. There is clearly a long list of powerful men of both political parties, of enormous wealth and power, who most, I imagine, are still alive today, that are being protected and that have so much wealth and so much power that our own Department of Justice has been twisted and moved and directed away from actually shedding out the truth. And that should concern every single person. And I told people, oh, in the past, they were like, oh, are you concerned? What if X person's name is on there? Or I was like, I don't give a fuck.
You don't care. Yeah.
I could care
Agreed.
who's on the damn list or what party they're in or how much money they have.
That's
Get
right.
the truth out there.
Amen. And the third, and I will add a third piece that I think is also really important, and hopefully you guys are going to get to this too, is also the financial aspect of it, because we're talking about some of the most wealthy men in the world. Jeffrey Epstein, y'all, was a billionaire. How did he become a billionaire? He was a math teacher who went to become a billionaire. He was not an expert in finance, but was running the finances for the guy who owned Victoria's Secret. Okay. And this gentleman, I guess Leo Black, the other guy, these are people who are involved in some of the highest level, high finance in the world. They were some of the richest men in the world. So the finance piece is important too. But I will answer your question. I know you have to go, Congressman. The reason that it never got this far during the Biden administration is that we had inert material inside of the Department of Justice named Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland couldn't be bothered to directly prosecute Donald Trump for stealing classified documents. He couldn't be bothered to directly prosecute Donald Trump for what Bolsonaro just got 22 years in prison for in Brazil. They managed to get the guy who tried to overturn their election and put him in jail for 22 years. Merrick Garland had to hide behind Jack Smith to even begin the process of prosecuting Donald Trump. If you want to understand why this didn't happen during the Biden era, Congressman, look no further than Merrick laying on the ground, sleeping on the job Garland, who didn't do jack shit for 4 years.
I have to agree with a lot of what you just said. Merrick Garland will actually be, we're going to depose Merrick Garland, actually.
Please.
So he's going to come. I understand that's being worked on right now, and the timing on the Republican side, because they want to talk to Merrick Garland. So do we. Because I have all these exact same questions. I mean, look, we're going to get to the bottom of it, and I hope that folks realize that this committee, we're going to be aggressive, and people just trust that we're going to fight like hell. We're going to get the information out there. We're not stopping every day. So we'll get out there.
Congressman Robert Garcia, one of the best in the Congress, because he actually cares and actually does the work. I appreciate you, my friend. Hopefully I'll see you in person sometime soon. Thank you. Keep the work up. Keep a door open to us and let us know how things are going, because we'd love to have you back.
Anytime. Thanks, Trey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that's it, you all. See, that is the question. That is the $1 billion question, is why nothing was done during the Biden administration. That's the answer. Merrick Garland was an utterly useless human. He did literally nothing useful during his time. And I'm sorry, I am a Merrick Garland a hater. I am a hater. I'm an OG hater, because he didn't do his job. Christopher Wray, when he was FBI director, and Christopher Wray's a Republican, he came out and he gave this really searing testimony that talked about the fact that the biggest threat to our security, our domestic security, was white nationalism, racially motivated extremism, white nationalist extremism. He said that. That was Christopher Wray, not Joy Reid, not the liberals on MSNBC. He said it. And what was the action that was taken inside of the Department of Justice to combat that or to deal with that? There was no action taken. Then when January 6th happened, that was driven by the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, far right-wing extremist armed organizations, and they attempted to overthrow the government. What did Merrick Garland do about that? Nothing. He decided that it was too scary as the Attorney General of the United States to himself undertake an investigation of that attempted coup. And he decided to pass it off to a special counsel. Let me be clear. And this is not me talking. We had, really smart people at MSNBC that used to come on, and these were our experts. These were legal experts, people who had come from the DOJ, and they made it very clear, especially Weissman, our friend, the former U.S. Attorney Weissman, who worked at the Sovereign, what they call it the Sovereign Office, the New York version of I'm going to forget, the DOJ office, who said that there was no need for a special counsel, that Merrick Garland himself could have undertaken that investigation. Look what Pamela Joe is doing. Pamela Joe is out there threatening to investigate everybody. What is Jeanine Pirro doing? Jeanine Pirro has the Southern District of New York. Sorry, the Southern District of New York is what I was trying to think of. She's out here. Jeanine Pirro's out here trying to investigate the guy who threw a sandwich at a federal agent. The guy threw a Subway sandwich, and she's ready to give him 50 years in prison. She's not scared. She's not holding back. None of these people are holding back. Pamela Joe is now under orders to investigate Letitia James for nothing. Literally for nothing. For literally nothing, right? They're trying to get her for mortgage fraud. They're looking for ways, because Donald Trump is so desperate to have his political opponents, what he considers his enemies, prosecuted, because he was prosecuted. He's still mad about the fact that people have prosecuted him and investigated him for committing actual crimes. He committed crimes, and he's mad that he got prosecuted for them. And now he wants to see Democrats prosecuted. He wants payback. He wants Adam Schiff prosecuted for God knows what. He's trying to invent things to prosecute people for, because he wants them to feel the same pain that he felt. Donald Trump, who is desperate to make other people do the perp walks he didn't even really have to do. But he's so mad about the fact that he got caught stealing classified documents, that he got caught trying to overthrow the government, right? That he is determined and desperate to have people prosecuted. And he's got a DOJ that, unlike Merrick Garland, who literally did nothing with his time as the Attorney General of the United States, he's got somebody who will do it. So my answer, and I hope that they do depose Merrick Garland, is that the reason that we did not see prosecutions in the Jeffrey Epstein case or further investigation is because Merrick Garland, I'm not sure what he was doing all the time when he was there, but he wasn't doing that. All right. Thank y'all for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe, share this channel. Make sure that everybody subscribes to the YouTube channel. 70% of people are lurking, watching these shows and not subscribing. Why would you do that? So make sure that you like, subscribe, and throw some comments. And thank you all for joining the Joy Reid Show. See you on the next one. And goodbye for now.